Hey, friends. We are going to continue on with Stan Hancock's casebook and see what more we find in there. Okay, where we left off, Stan was continuing his narration and summary of Gypsy's interrogation. And he said, they then went and ate at the Waffle House next to Days Inn. Gypsy said she drank some milk and forgot that she was allergic to milk. I'm going to break in here already and say that Gypsy being allergic to milk is something that she never really talks about now because, of course, the narrative now is that she was absolutely healthy. There was no reason for Dee Dee to act the way that she did. Well, now we know she had microcephaly. She had an allergy to milk. The eye surgeries were necessary. She has scoliosis. She was writing Ryan from prison saying she was worried she wouldn't be able to work whenever she got out due to her real diagnosis of scoliosis. And also, the day before the murder, she texted Nick how she had packed pain pills for her back and exercised her legs so she would be prepared to walk. Yo. Okay, back to the narrative. They left and went back to the hotel room where they went to sleep for about 5 hours. They stayed at the hotel until the 11th, and then they got a cab to the Greyhound bus station on Kearney Street in Springfield, Missouri. When they could not get a bus ticket to ride the same bus, they went back to Days Inn and stayed another night. They went to Walmart to purchase a soda, condoms, and lip balm from Walmart. Gypsy did not go into Walmart but waited outside with the luggage. Gypsy had the same clothing on during my interview as she did when she and Nicholas left Springfield. She claimed she was not wearing anything on her face. However, the Greyhound bus video shows that she was wearing sunglasses on her face. I'm breaking in here to say I like how he notes every lie that he knew at the time she was telling. He makes note of it. Okay, back to the narrative. She then told me, my thoughts of life between Nicholas and I are a lot different now. Oh, yeah, imagine that, y'all. I really, really think that Gypsy's plan kept changing, regardless of what a prep person she is and what a, crazy planner. She clearly kept changing her plan. She did not, in my opinion, plan to go back with Nicholas initially. That's why she didn't have a bus ticket. And then once she got there, when she changed to that plan, decided that, and then she got there, realized she didn't like living with him. She wanted to blow it up and get found and pin it all on him and be a rescued innocent victim. That's my opinion. Now back to the narrative. She never felt she was in any danger when she arrived in Wisconsin being with Nicholas. She described how Nicholas would do anything for her because he loved and cared for her so much. She said Nicholas had an evil side and he needed to get rid of it. She said they got on the Greyhound bus on the 12th at 7 in the morning. They traveled from Springfield to St. Louis, Missouri to Chicago, Illinois, then to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where Nicholas's mother picked them up at the Greyhound bus station at 2 in the morning. Gypsy denied bringing up the idea of killing her mom to Nicholas. She said Nicholas had an evil side to him and he did want to do it. He wanted to get rid of my mom. She continued to say he wanted to kill her mom. When I told her she had left some things out of her story, she slightly shakes her head and says, I know, but continues to deny having anything to do with the killing of her mother. Breaking in here to say, that sounds kind of like now, doesn't it? She is back to that same narrative, y'all. He wanted to do this. He wanted to do this. And her friends repeat that narrative. They're like, no, 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 no. Nick wanted to do this. And he could have just turned around and left at the door. And they leave a lot out of the story about the fact that, Gypsy could have not handed him the knife. She could have not opened the door. She could have made different choices herself, too. But they like to focus on the fact that Nick said he had thought about it before. And I'm going to be real, y'all. A lot of people with differing mental illnesses or trauma or PTSD or, high anxiety and stuff have thought of that. It's not completely unheard of. Most people who are balanced are able to put those thoughts away. Sometimes people are vulnerable mentally and emotionally, and they get groomed by other people into thinking that following through with that thought would be a noble thing because they'd be saving someone. Okay, I'm going to stop ranting and go back to the narrative, y'all. Forgive me. Gypsy stated that Nick would have committed self-unaliving if they did not kill her mom. I told Gypsy she was going to be booked in for murder along with Nicholas. I left the room, and a short time later, Gypsy stood up and shouted that she wanted a lawyer. Sir, sir, I need a lawyer. And then it switches to a supplemental report from Stan Hancock. It says on June 16th, 2015, while in Waukesha County, Wisconsin, I assisted Waukesha County Sheriff's Department in serving a search warrant at Nick's house in Big Bend, Wisconsin. This is the residence of Stephanie and Charles Goldhammer, their 7-year-old son, and their 26-year-old son, Nicholas Godejohn. This is also the residence Gypsy had been located at on June 15th, 2015. The purpose of the search was to locate any and all evidence reference to the travels to and from Springfield, Missouri, as well as evidence reference the homicide of Claudinia and Blanchard. By the way, I'm breaking in. A few of y'all were correct in my pronunciation in the last video, and I know how it's pronounced, but there's a lot of different spellings in this casebook due to the reports being from several different officers who had different information and also might have just made their own errors. And so I was trying to accentuate going with the different spellings, but I know it annoyed some of y'all to hear me mispronouncing her name. So I apologize for that. Okay, back to the narrative. Prior to the search, a briefing was conducted in which Greene County Sheriff's Office Detective Sergeant A. Mahoney and I briefed Waukesha County Sheriff's Department detectives on items which were of interest to us as a result of processing the crime scene in Springfield, Missouri, and interviews with Nicholas and Gypsy. It was agreed the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department, acting under a search warrant issued in their county, would collect all evidence, package evidence as collected, and turn over all evidence to the Greene County Sheriff's Office at the completion of the investigation in Waukesha County. The scene was processed and evidence was collected by several Waukesha County detectives. See their reports, case WI 5043195 for details reference the processing of the residence located at Nick's house, Big Bend, Wisconsin. All evidence collected was secured by Waukesha County Sheriff's Department until June 17th, 2015, at which time it was released to Sergeant Mahoney and I for transport back to Springfield, Missouri. The evidence remained in the transport vehicle at all times, and at no time was the evidence left unsecured. The evidence was removed from transport vehicle on June 17th, 2015, and secured at the Greene County Sheriff's Office once arriving in Springfield, Missouri. I made contact with Charles Goldammer and advised him of the reason for me contacting him. He agreed to speak with me. This interview took place at the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department. The interview was video recorded and logged into evidence. Charles is the stepfather to Nicholas Godejohn. The following is not intended to be a transcript of the interview, but a summation of the interview. Charles stated that Nicholas told him and his mother, Stephanie Goldhammer, he was going to Missouri because he wanted to go get Gypsy and bring her back to Wisconsin because Gypsy had been kicked out of her residence and was living in a homeless shelter. He denied Nicholas having any type of drug or alcohol abuse. Nicholas collected Social Security benefits, and he used to work for Little Caesars Pizza in Wisconsin. However, he quit Little Caesars because he was not allowed to take a break every hour. Charles said Nicholas was on disability because he was autistic and had Asperger's. Nicholas was not close to anyone and had no friends. It's interesting that he says that because Nicholas did have friends. We know that from other evidence collected after the fact. Nicholas had received some money from Gypsy through the mail. Charles did not know the exact amount of money he had received from her, but he thought it was around a few $100s. He knew this because he observed the cash Nicholas had on him. On June 9th, 2015, Nicholas had called the taxi cab to pick him up at his residence in Wisconsin and took him to the Greyhound bus station. Nicholas called and told Charles he was in Springfield, Missouri. This was on June 9th, 2015. He could not remember the exact time, but he knew it was late at night. Breaking in here to say, y'all, remember the neighbors saying that Dee Dee was rattled by a theft a few months before? That would have been Gypsy stealing the money to send to Nick to come murder her. Poor Dee Dee. The first time Charles said he talked to Gypsy was when she had come downstairs to make some macaroni and cheese. The conversation was very short, and they talked about how she had made the macaroni wrong. Charles and Gypsy talked about how her mom cooked macaroni, and this is where she learned to cook it. It was a very short conversation between the two of them. Charles said he was freaked out by Gypsy because she was wearing a black wig with some red tin in it. Charles told me Gypsy had no problems walking up and down the stairs in his house, and she never needed assistance or help in doing anything. They were constantly having sex, and Charles had to tell them to be quiet. The macaroni and cheese thing, whenever he tried to tell her how to do it right, and Gypsy was like, well, this is how my mom does it, reminds me of whenever she made a mess of trying to make scrambled eggs at Ken's house because she didn't grease the pan. And she was immediately like, well, this is how I do it at mom and dad's house, talking about Rod and Christy. Like, her patterns are so consistent, y'all. Even though one of her patterns is absolute chaos and blowing up her plans, like the patterns just are consistent as hell. Also, it's hilarious. Charles has mentioned about them constantly having sex and having to tell them to be quiet when we all know Gypsy likes to claim now that they never actually had anything happen. She said in one of the emails that, nothing actually happened with her and Nick, but she faked it. Why would she fake it that loudly, knowing there was a child and Nick's parents in the house? So to me, either way, whether she faked it or whether it was real, and I believe it was real personally, she chose to be that sexually loud, knowing there was a child and parents in the house. I don't know. I feel like that tells us something about Gypsy more again and her weird family kinks, y'all. What do y'all think? Am I right or am I reaching? Okay. He remembered receiving a package in the mail. The mail is delivered to their residence with Nicholas's name on it. The package had arrived Saturday, June 15th, 2015. The package was put on the kitchen table, and he told Nicholas he had a package addressed to him. Charles said he could not remember much about the package, but it was in an envelope of some kind. Gypsy quickly told Charles she would take it, and she took it upstairs. He said he never looked in the package. And he had no idea what was in the package. Charles said Nicholas plays a lot of video games and keeps to himself. Charles did not have any further information, and the interview was concluded. It says, I obtained the original probable cause statement involving Gypsy and Nicholas and had it scanned into niche. Don't know what niche is, but now this is funny. This is somebody that Fancy has mentioned a lot, MJ Pack. Stan says, I was contacted by Megan Pack via phone call about some Facebook information which she thought might be important involving Gypsy. Pack stated she was a staff writer for a magazine called Creepy Catalog, which is based out of St. Louis, Missouri. Pack stated that she had anonymous sources sending her articles and comments about Gypsy from Facebook. The Facebook picture depicted Gypsy wearing a red and black outfit holding a knife to her mouth. This information was already obtained by Greene County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigations Divisions via search warrants from Facebook. Pack stated she would send me updates but had nothing further to add at the time of this report. A lot of people thought they were doing Greene County's job for them, and the things that they reported to them they already had. Then Stan says, I made contact with Mike Hatzenbuehler, who was the assets production manager for the Walmart store located at 2825 North Kansas Expressway, Springfield, Missouri. I made contact with Mike and advised him of the reason for me contacting him. I verified with Mike the Walmart store did sell Kevin Van Dam KVD knives. I requested video from Mike from the fishing aisle, which is where the KVD knives were located at for sale. Mike stated because of the large amount of video I had requested, it would take some time to copy the video and he would notify me when it was completed. Mike stated he did have some sales of the KVD knife. However, after reviewing the video from the stores which sold the KVD knife, it was evident it was not Gypsy or Nicholas in the videos. The videos were dated May 29, 2015 at 15:53 hours. The other video was June 1st, 2015, unknown time in this one. On July 9th, 2015, I received notification from Mike about the videos being ready. I obtained the videos and began to review them to try and locate Gypsy or Nicholas purchasing a KVD knife, which was the same brand of knife used to kill Claudina. I was unable to determine the date and time because the video did not display this information. I did not observe anyone who I would identify as Gypsy or Nicholas in the videos. Mike signed a business record affidavit. The business record affidavit was put with the case. Then on August 3rd, 2015, he says, I received an email from Walmart.com investigator Richard D. in reference to his findings about the sales of the KVD knife. I reviewed the email and did not observe any KVD knife being shipped or ordered by Gypsy or under any of her aliases, nor was there any record of Nicholas ordering the knife. There was no addresses showing a KVD knife being sent to Missouri. There was one KVD knife sold to someone in Wisconsin. I made phone contact with her, stated she purchased the knife from Walmart.com through the internet. She stated she did not know Gypsy or Nicholas, nor was she associated with them. And there are some logs of the Walmart.com orders of the knives. And we've got another note from Stan, another report. He says, I received a DVD of Gypsy Blanchard's phone conversation from Waukesha County Sheriff's Department, Waukesha, Wisconsin, while she was incarcerated in their facility. The DVD was logged into evidence. I reviewed the conversations Gypsy had with her family. When Gypsy would speak to her family, she would call them by their relative relationships, such as aunt, uncle, etc. She told her family she could not talk about what happened per her attorney. I heard Gypsy call the female she was talking to Aunt Celeste. Gypsy spoke of how she was innocent and she got messed up with someone very awful. Gypsy told Aunt Celeste she wanted to live with her family in Louisiana when she gets released. This call was placed on June 21st, 2015. Gypsy placed a call to phone number on June 22nd, 2015. Gypsy was talking to a female she called Christy. She told Christy she could not talk about what happened. Gypsy told Christy to tell her dad she was innocent and she wanted to know if her dad still loved her. Gypsy told Christy the things which had been said on the news media were not true. Gypsy asked Christy if she got out of jail, could she come live with her? Gypsy placed a phone call to number on June 23rd, 2015. Gypsy started talking to Christy and then a male got on the phone who she called Daddy. During the investigation, it was discovered Rod Blanchard was Gypsy's biological dad. Gypsy and her dad talked about what jail was like and if Gypsy knew when she was going to be extradited to Springfield, Missouri. Gypsy's dad told her he cared and loved her, but he was confused and he had a lot of questions. Gypsy would not talk about the case with her dad. Gypsy talked about how she wanted to build a relationship with her dad, and she told him she wanted him to know that she was innocent. A phone call was placed to number on June 24th, 2015. When the call was reviewed, the female's voice did not sound like Gypsy's voice. It was the voice of an unknown female who was talking to an unknown male who was trying to get bailed out of the Waukesha County Sheriff's Office jail. There was nothing else of evidentiary value in the DVD pertaining to the homicide. I wonder if that was really a mistake or if Waukesha thought there was some reason for that phone call to be included. Huh. Then Stan says, while reviewing Greene County Justice Center jail phone calls from Gypsy, I heard her and another female talking about Nicholas. Gypsy made the statement to the female, unknown female's name, I never asked him to be that gruesome, referring to Nicholas killing Claudinia. In another phone conversation, Gypsy made a statement referring about Claudinia. I was desperate to get away, referring to get away from her mother. The caller identification showed the number to be, and the name on the caller identification showed to be a Rod Blanchard. The call was placed by Gypsy on June 24th, 2015 at 20:50 hours. The phone calls were downloaded to a CD and logged into evidence. On July 7th, 2015, I applied for a search warrant for DNA saliva blood sample from Gypsy Blanchard. The search warrant was granted and signed by the Honorable Greene County Judge Jones. I made contact with Gypsy Blanchard at the Greene County Jail and advised her of the reason for me contacting her. I presented Gypsy with a copy of the Greene County search warrant and told her we would be collecting a sample of her saliva and blood under the authority of the search warrant. I collected a sample of her saliva from her left cheek first. I introduced the swab into her mouth and began scraping the left side of her cheek. I counted to 60 seconds, removed the swab, and put it on the outside of the cardboard swab container to dry. I removed the gloves and placed them into a bag to be logged into evidence. I repeated the same process with fresh gloves on my hand to the inside of her right cheek. All the trash was placed into the bag and logged into evidence. The swabs, after they were dried, were also logged into evidence. Nurse LPN with Greene County Justice Center Correctional Facility collected 3 vials of blood from Gypsy. All 3 vials were handed over to me and they were logged into evidence. The search warrant return was returned July 7th, 2015. On July 9th, 2015, I applied for a search warrant for DNA saliva blood sample from Nicholas Godejohn. The warrant was granted and signed by the Honorable Judge Cordona. I made contact with Nicholas at the Greene County Jail and advised him of the reason for me contacting him. I presented Nicholas with a copy of the Greene County search warrant and told him we would be collecting a sample of his saliva and blood under the authority of the search warrant. I collected a sample of his saliva from his left cheek first, introduced the swab into his mouth, and began scraping the left side of his inside cheek. I'll skip the rest of that paragraph because it's just a description of the same process he went through at Gypsy. And then another nurse collected 2 vials of blood from Nicholas. And Stan says, I responded to the Missouri State Highway Patrol Crime Laboratory to retrieve the KVD brand knife used in the murder of Claudinia Blanchard. To take photographs, I collected the knife from Missouri State Highway Patrol Laboratory and returned to the Greene County Sheriff's Office Evidence Processing Room. I put down fresh butcher block paper before I started to open the box. I put gloves on and opened the box to retrieve the knife. Once the knife was free from the box, I removed the black and color sheath and began taking photographs of the KVD knife without the sheath. After I took my photographs, I then repackaged the knife and returned it to the Missouri State Highway Patrol Laboratory. I logged the gloves, zip tie, and butcher block paper into evidence as crime scene trash. On July 14th, 2015, I was contacted by Lieutenant Marty May about a witness statement Gypsy Blanchard filled out while she was housed in Tower 2 at the Greene County Justice Center. Lieutenant May said he wanted to give me a copy of the statement. I collected a copy of the statement from Lieutenant May and put it with the case. I read the statement Gypsy wrote to Greene County Sheriff's Office Corrections Officer M. Adkins. The statement said Gypsy observed inmate Amanda Flores using the toilet when she heard what sounded like a plastic bag crunching. She observed Flores put the bag in her vagina. When Gypsy asked Flores what was in the bag, Flores did not tell her. Gypsy observed Flores trade another inmate. Gypsy did not know the name of the other inmate she traded commissary with, what she observed to be marijuana for some commissary. The next day, Gypsy told a corrections officer about what she had observed. She's such a snitch, y'all. And then here's Gypsy's actual statement. I saw Flores using the toilet and heard a crunchy bag sound. I saw her put a small bag in her vaginal area and asked, "What's that?" She said nothing. She pulled the bag out again and traded some weed for commissary to Elba and gave some to Rodriguez and a cellmate. Rodriguez took it and then she got high. Then they went to sleep. Flores offered me some. I decided the next day I want to take a shower and I told the officer something what happened and kept quiet until Monday when a cell check is done. Weed was under her mat. Good Lord. She was stealing drugs from her mom for Dan and then had them murdered, but she's going to tell on people for a little weed. Okay, and then it says on August 3rd, 2015, I was contacted by Greene County Sheriff Office Corrections Officer Dwight Willis about a letter he had received from Gypsy to be mailed to a Rachel and Ray Miller. Corrections Officer Willis stated he was advised by the Greene County Prosecuting Attorney Dan Patterson to have the letter turned over to me and logged into evidence. I obtained the letter from Corrections Officer Willis and signed a chain of custody form. I reviewed the letter and then logged the letter into evidence. The letter was dated July 28th, 2015, and contained information about how Gypsy was overwhelmed when she found out Rachel and Ray tried to write her a letter. She talked about how Nicholas was her ex-boyfriend and how, sorry, this is really blurry and hard to read on this one, how media is making her out to be a monster when my part was small in this. Again, doesn't that sound like now? Yet something felt as though she was talking a lot of the blame for the murder. She stated in the letter, "Yes, I'm in trouble. I'm a part of this terrible, tragic act." Gypsy talked about how her life with her mother was not what everyone thought it was. She talked about how she was not sick. She was very healthy. She claimed to not remember what happened because of medication she was on. She talked about the relationship she was building with her biological father and how she would be able to stay with him when she got out of jail. The letter did not contain anything pertinent to the homicide case. Sounds to me like Dan Patterson might have been impressed with the letter, but Stan Hancock was not. I could be misreading that because, like I said, the words are really blurry on that one and it's hard to make out. And this is a notice to Gypsy that her letter was confiscated. Here's the actual letter, y'all. I'm not even going to try to read her crazy handwriting. I've read it before because it's been out there before. And there was a version that was made clearer than this by someone doing the Lord's work. Okay, he says, I received an inmate to staff request from inmate Amanda Flores, who was incarcerated in the Greene County Justice Center on unrelated charges. Flores stated she had information about the homicide Gypsy was involved in. I made contact with Flores and escorted her to an interview room. The interview was video recorded and logged into evidence. The following is not intended to be a transcript, but a summation of the interview. Flores said she wanted immunity for telling me what she heard Gypsy say when she was housed in the same cell with her. I told Flores I could not help her out with her case and I could not promise anything. Flores said she was not a snitch, but she knows a lot about Gypsy's case. Flores said Gypsy was creepy smart and she does not want to see Gypsy get away with it, referring to the murder. Flores continued to tell me she did not want to give up information without being helped in some way. Flores stated before Gypsy came to jail, she supported Gypsy. Flores asked Gypsy if she had sought Nicholas out, referring to Gypsy seeking Nicholas out to kill her mom. Gypsy told Flores, I probably did. Flores began to tell me some things Gypsy had told her about the murder. She mentioned how Nicholas had a cut on his finger from stabbing Claudina. Flores told me Gypsy told her she cleaned up with the blood from the bed to the bathroom using carpet cleaner and wipes. During my interview with Gypsy, she told me several times she did not go into her mother's room after she was dead. Gypsy told Flores she cleaned up pretty good. Flores said Gypsy would talk about missing her stuffed animal, but Flores could not remember what kind of stuffed animal it was. Gypsy tried to use one of Flora's friends to pass a note to Nicholas, and Flora said she got upset with Gypsy and told her she was not going to use her friends to pass notes. Flores admitted to me Gypsy told on her for having a misdemeanor amount of marijuana, but Flores said this was not the reason she was talking to me. Okay, I want to break in here for a minute and say, yeah, that's very interesting that Gypsy told her that she cleaned up from the bed to the bathroom. That would be from Dee Dee's bed, obviously, all down the hall to the bathroom. And I can't, there are evidence pictures. I'll put one up here of the cut on Nicholas's finger. I can't see him losing that much blood from that cut as what we see in the evidence photos. Can y'all? If I'm reaching here and y'all know of a reason why what I just said isn't right, how he could have lost that much blood from this kind of finger cut, let me know in the comments. I'm not afraid to be wrong, y'all. I tell y'all all the time, I'm not a professional here. I'm just a person with a YouTube channel and ideas and thoughts. And then the stuffed animal. Gypsy mentioned a stuffed animal in one of her emails that was, I want to say, a blue dog or something like that. But I wonder if it's not the Barney, y'all. And also in her emails, Gypsy talked about how she was so mad that she opened up and talked to other inmates in county jail and they immediately told on her. I don't remember her saying that anything she told them wasn't correct when she opened up. Do y'all? I'll have to go back and find those emails where she talked about opening up to other inmates and them spilling everything that she said. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, back to the report. Flores gave me two other inmates' names who she said wanted to talk to me, Michaela Lutz and Mariah Rodriguez. Flores said Gypsy's attorney went to Louisiana to visit Gypsy's family. Flores mentioned how Gypsy had told her on more than one occasion while they were housed in the same cell together that I am going to get away with this, referring to the murder. Gypsy told Flores what Nicholas was saying when he stabbed Claudinia. Flores said Gypsy told her Nicholas was saying, "You are going to be dead before this happens," when he was stabbing Claudinia. Flores said Gypsy started talking in the cell one night to her, Lutz, and Rodriguez about how she put the knife in Nicholas's hand and told him to go kill her mother. Flores told me Gypsy told her she turned the air conditioner down to 40 degrees to preserve her mom's body, and she cleaned up the blood, including in the bedroom. Flores said Gypsy told her she went into Claudinia's bedroom after she was dead and took $5,000 out of a drawer from a table beside her mom's bed. Flores said the money is in a zipper-type bag. Okay, the zipper bag, I believe it was a CNB bank bag. That's a bank out of Springfield. We see that in the evidence pictures. And if Gypsy was making shit up while she was telling this, she included a real detail because there's no way I can think of that Flores would have known about that money being in the zipper bag. Like, I understand that Cellmate aren't the most reliable source, and especially considering Gypsy had just snitched on this girl for weed. However, this girl got a lot of details right that she just couldn't have known otherwise. So, what do y'all think about that? Personally, I believe it. I think it was all true. Then Stan says Flores had nothing further pertinent to the murder, so she was escorted back to jail staff. And then Stan has more here. He says, I received an inmate staff request from inmate Amanda Flores, who was incarcerated in the Greene County Justice Center on unrelated charges. Flores stated that she had information about the homicide Gypsy was involved in. See supplemental reports on Flores for the information she had given to me during an interview. Flores gave me the name of two other inmates, Mariah Rodriguez and Michaela Lutz, who wanted to talk to me. See supplemental report on Lutz for the information she had given to me during an interview. I made contact with inmate Rodriguez, who was incarcerated in the Greene County Justice Center on unrelated charges. I advised Rodriguez for the reason of contacting her. She stated the only thing she knew about Gypsy was she had written a letter to Rachel and Ray about how her part in the murder was small. Rodriguez did not want to talk any further. I returned Rodriguez to the jail staff. The interview was video recorded and logged into evidence. I'm not sure that means that what Flores said wasn't true. I think maybe Rodriguez just wasn't comfortable with snitching once it got down to it. Or maybe she was disheartened by the fact that Flores didn't get any kind of immunity for her information. Then Stan says, I made contact with Michaela Lutz, who was incarcerated at the Greene County Justice Center on unrelated charges to Gypsy's case. Lutz told me Gypsy talked about her case when they were housed together on Tower 2 in the Greene County Jail. The following was video recorded and the DVD was logged into evidence. The following is a summation of the interview and is not intended to be a transcript of the interview. Lutz said Gypsy told her about how she set the thermostat to 40 degrees to preserve Claudinia's body to help keep the smell down because she knew she was going to be leaving the state. Lutz talked about how Nicholas had cut his finger during the stabbing and how Gypsy was hiding in the bathroom while he was committing the murder. She talked about how Gypsy cleaned up the blood from her mother's bedroom to the bathroom with carpet cleaner and wipes. Lutz went on to talk about how Nicholas was going to rape Claudinia or Gypsy. She talked about how Nicholas was into incest. Lutz said Gypsy told her she was ard vaginally and anally by Nicholas after the murder. Lutz said Gypsy was not innocent and she was a sick person. Lutz said Gypsy had gone into her mother's bedroom after she was murdered and cleaned up blood from her mom's bed to the bathroom. Lutz was told when Nicholas had come into the house, Gypsy and Nicholas had kissed, and Claudinia was already asleep. Nicholas went over to a chair where there was a box of spring cleaning items and picked up the knife. Lutz did not have a description of the knife. The knife was by the box of cleaning supplies, and Nicholas picked up the knife and then took off. Lutz said they mailed the knife to another state, but she could not remember what state it was they mailed it to. But she knew it was where Nicholas had lived. Gypsy took $5,000 from a nightstand in Claudinia's bedroom. Lutz said there was $10,000 in the nightstand originally. However, Claudinia had put some money down for a new vehicle. It should be noted a contract between Claudinia and Central Bank of the Ozarks was located for the purchase of a 2011 Nissan Cube, April 9th, 2015. The contract indicated $5,000 in cash was put down toward the purchase of the Nissan Cube. Gypsy told Lutz after the murder she and Nicholas called a cab to pick them up, and they went to North Glenstone somewhere to a hotel. They rented a room for the night and the next day, and then went to the Greyhound bus station in Springfield, Missouri to leave the state, but they could not get a ticket for the both of them, so they went back to the hotel and stayed another night. Gypsy told several of the female inmates in Tower 2 about how Lutz was strong-arming her for phone time. Lutz said she never used Gypsy's phone time and denied the allegations. Gypsy told Lutz if she and Nicholas would have a baby girl together, Nicholas wanted to have sex with the daughter because he was into incest. Gypsy had cried about Nicholas, but she never cried about her mother's death. Lutz said inmate Amanda Flores had told her Gypsy talked about how she planned different ways to kill her mother. Some of the ways she planned to kill her mother was by strangling, grape, poisoning, and stabbing. Lutz said Gypsy told her she had paid for everything, the bus ticket, the hotel room for both night, and the cab's fees. Lutz filled out a statement, and the statement was put with the case. Lutz had nothing further to add about the homicide. So there are just a couple of details there that Lutz has different from Flores, but most are consistent. The only detail that's different is Lutz has Nick picking the knife up from a chair instead of Gypsy putting it in his hands, which honestly, I can see Gypsy switching around those details depending on who she's talking to and how badass she wants to feel at the time, to be honest. What do y'all think? And I also wonder, whenever Gypsy talks about strong arming her for phone time, I'm trying to remember what was the name of the inmate that Gypsy accused of grape. I wonder if that one's going to come up in this report. We'll see. It's also interesting that Gypsy told Lutz that she had planned other ways of killing her because Nick said the same thing in his interrogation, that Gypsy had thought about other ways of killing her. And then here's her actual written statement where Lutz wrote down everything. Clean up his hand, and then go to her mother's bedroom and clean up a blood trail to the bathroom with baby wipes and carpet cleaner. Oh, and on the setting of the AC, it says in the report, we know that really happened. I know some people, Fancy and others, have questioned whether that happened. No, it says in the report the AC was turned down, I think, to like 43 degrees. Now, the AC probably couldn't actually get the temperature in the house that low. It would have been just running constantly trying to get it there, but that's a true fact. She did set it down that low trying to preserve. And those dryer sheets and baby powder that was all around there, Gypsy has admitted that she did that. And we know that she looked it up because they got, her Google searches and things, and she had searched on how to mask a decomp smell. And there's no way she could have done that while Dee Dee was alive. That would have had to have been after she was dead because Dee Dee would have been like, why the fuck are there dryer sheets everywhere and powder? So as far as I'm concerned, we have ample evidence to conclude that Gypsy definitely went in the bedroom after the murder, which she claims she didn't. I know most of you are completely convinced also that she also did some of the stabbing. I think she did as well, but I'm still looking for more things to for slip I'm looking for slip ups from her to confirm that. I think she feels confident that she's been careful enough from the emails that no one can ever confirm that because she's said so many times, like, no one can ever find anything that says Gypsy stabbed Dee Dee. No one can ever find anything. If she hadn't gotten cautious early on, I suspect she might have admitted it. Okay, back to the narrative. It says on August 12th, 2015, I made contact with the manager at Days Inn, located at 3114 North Kentwood, Springfield, Missouri, to request to take photographs of rooms 226 and 227. I was given two key cards to gain access to room 226 and room 227. Both rooms were not rented at the time. I took photographs of room 226 and I took photographs of room 227. Both rooms were unoccupied. I took several photographs of both rooms and completed a photograph log. On August 17th, 2015, I applied for a search warrant for Nicholas Godejohn's cell phone number records from Sprint Communications. The warrant was sought because this was the cell phone number for the cell phone Kyocera flip phone Nicholas had been using when he committed the murder and the communication between Nicholas and Gypsy. Greene County Honorable Judge Dan Emhoff signed the search warrant. The search warrant was faxed to Sprint Communications. The search warrant return was completed on August 19th, 2015. On August 17th, 2015, I applied for a search warrant for Gypsy Blanchard's Yahoo accounts records from Yahoo Incorporated. This warrant was sought because I was believed the records contained information related to the murder of Claudinia Blanchard. Greene County Honorable Judge Dan Emhoff signed the search warrant. The search warrant was emailed to Yahoo Inc. on August 19th, 2015. Search warrant was returned on August 20th, 2015. The Yahoo accounts were for Two Forevermore 1 at yahoo.com, Twin Flame Soulmates at yahoo.com, Gypsy Blanchard at yahoo.com, and any other Yahoo ID associated with the phone number. The search warrant was sought because these were the accounts Gypsy had used during her encounters with Nicholas prior to the murder. There was another one I saw earlier on in the case report too that was Cajun Angel or something like that. That's another one of Gypsy's patterns that stays so constant. She always has so many social media accounts. It's like some kind of compulsion with her. She can't quit creating new accounts all the time. It's weird, y'all. So weird. On August 17th, 2015, I applied for a search warrant for 4 thumb drives located and recovered in Nicholas Godejohn's bedroom, pursuant to a Waukesha County Sheriff's Office, Wisconsin search warrant. The warrant was sought because the thumb drives were located in the bedroom during the search warrant. The thumb drives were located in the bedroom with computers which were used for communication between Gypsy Blanchard and Nicholas. Statements were made from Nicholas about researching ways to kill someone. Greene County Judge Dan Emhoff signed the search warrant. The thumb drives and a copy of the search warrant were given to Springfield Police Department computer forensic investigator Michael Costello to be analyzed on August 20th, 2015. On August 30th, 2015, I received a letter and a CD from Sprint Communications from Nicholas' cell phone records pursuant to a search warrant. The search warrant was sought because the phone number was associated with the Kyocera flip phone he had used prior and during the murder of Claudinia. The letter was the response from Sprint Telecommunications from the search warrant they received. The CD was reviewed and logged into evidence. The CD contained several phone numbers and longitude latitude information. I did not observe any new information contained in the CD. Okay, so now we get to where Stan has included the report of A. Mahoney, the lady who interrogated Nick. And he's got her summary here of the interrogation. Let's see what she's got to say. And I just got to say before we start reading this, I get so annoyed with this lady whenever I watch the interrogation because at one point, Nick was ready to tell her Gypsy's plan. He told her about how Gypsy started removing pictures of herself. She wanted to make it look like she wasn't there. And the lady just goes, huh, and then goes back to questioning him about the exact details of the murder. And I just feel like what a missed opportunity because Nick will probably never be ready to tell that again. On June 15th, 2015, while assisting with the homicide investigation referenced the death of Claudinia Ann Blanchard, I was assigned to respond to Waukesha County, Wisconsin to locate and interview Nicholas P. Godejohn. On June 16th, 2015, at 0011 hours, I made contact with Nicholas P. Godejohn in an interview room within the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department. Nicholas was advised of his Miranda warning, to which he acknowledged he understood by both initiating and signing the Greene County Miranda form. The following is a summation of my recorded audio-video interview with Nicholas Godejohn. It is not intended to be a transcript or an exact text of the recorded interview. Nicholas identified himself as Nicholas Paul Godejohn. Nicholas said he is 26 years old and he graduated from Nathan Hale High School in West Allis, Wisconsin. Nicholas said he has only lived in Big Bend for a few months and that he lived in Waukesha, Wisconsin prior to moving to Big Bend. Nicholas said he does not have any children. Nicholas said he and Gypsy Blanchard first met via the internet dating site ChristianDatingForFree.com. Nicholas said he met a couple people prior to meeting Gypsy on the dating site. Nicholas said the name Gypsy used on the dating site was Gypsy Rose, and he used Nicholas Godejohn. Nicholas said 4 days after meeting Gypsy on the dating site, he and Gypsy decided to start a committed relationship. Nicholas said the way that we clicked, it made it seem like we somehow just knew we were right for each other. I'm going to break in here to say that makes me think back to the cellmate who asked Gypsy if she sought out Nick, and Gypsy said, I probably did. Nicholas said he and Gypsy tried communicating on the internet site meetme.com. However, the site was very difficult to use, so they didn't use the site long. Nicholas said they did communicate via the social networking site Facebook. Nicholas said he used his name, Nicholas Godejohn. Nicholas said there was a lot of Facebook accounts that have been deleted, but the ones he mostly remembered communicating with Gypsy on were named Emma Rose, Gypsy Rose, and Nicholas Bella Rose. Nicholas said Emma Rose and Gypsy Rose have been deleted. However, he suspected the Nicholas Bella Rose was still active. Again, that goes to Gypsy's patterns of having a million freaking social media accounts all the time. Nothing new under the sun. Okay, back to the narrative. Before providing the name on the Facebook account that Gypsy used to communicate with him, Nicholas began telling me about his June 2015 trip to Springfield, Missouri to get Gypsy after she was kicked out of her mother's house. Nicholas explained he got on a Greyhound bus, rode to Springfield, Missouri, and walked to a Days Inn hotel. Nicholas could not recall what kind of clothing he had been wearing when he got off the bus and walked to the hotel in Springfield, Missouri. However, he thought it could have been athletic clothing. Nicholas explained he had luggage with him when he got off the bus. Nicholas described the luggage as being a red and black Marlboro cigarette duffel bag. Nicholas said he had brought 3 changes of clothing with him when he traveled to Springfield, Missouri. Nicholas explained Gypsy had been kicked out of her mother's home and he was worried sick about her because she was wandering the streets. Nicholas said he sent Gypsy a text message and he believed she must have found a free Wi-Fi area because Gypsy was able to text him back. Nicholas said he had used his cell phone to text Gypsy. Nicholas said his cell phone number is. Nicholas said Gypsy had communicated with him via Yahoo ID. Nicholas said it is a message service through Yahoo, but he did not have details about the service. Nicholas said that on June 10th, 2015, he was able to get Gypsy to meet him. Nicholas explained he told Gypsy the name of the hotel he was staying at and the name of the road the hotel was on. Nicholas said he did not receive any text from Gypsy for a while. Then as he was walking out of his hotel room to get a soda, he ran into Gypsy. Nicholas said Gypsy had her luggage with her when she arrived at his hotel room, so he took her luggage into his hotel room and they walked to get a soda. Nicholas said he got the soda from a vending machine located outside of the hotel. Nicholas said after returning to the room from getting the soda, he and Gypsy stayed in the hotel room. Nicholas explained he was in room 227 from the time he arrived in Springfield, Missouri until June 11th, 2015, at which time he was moved to room 226. He said he checked out June 11th, 2015, thinking they would be traveling back to Wisconsin. Now, something I'm not clear on, this is before Nick made the choice to tell the truth after the interrogator, coerced him by saying, you've got to do right by Gypsy here if you really love her or something like that. I'm not clear if Nick saying that he ran into Gypsy at the hotel was a real detail or part of his story before he decides to tell the truth. Maybe that'll become clear later on. I don't know. If I did know previously, I can't remember. If any of y'all know, please let me know in the comments, friends. Nicholas explained further, saying his return bus ticket was for June 11th, 2015. He said Gypsy was moving in with him, so he had to get a bus ticket for her as well. Nicholas explained the bus was full for June 11th, 2015 trip. So while at the bus station on June 11th, he changed his return ticket to June 12th and purchased a ticket for Gypsy. He said after changing the bus ticket and purchasing a bus ticket for Gypsy, they returned to the hotel and to stay overnight and rest. Nick said he ordered food from Domino's Pizza and Papa John's Pizza. Nick said both orders were delivered to his room, with one being on June 10th and the other being on June 11th. Nicholas denied he and Gypsy went out anywhere to eat. Nicholas said he and Gypsy went back to the bus station on June 12th, 2015 to travel back to Wisconsin. Nicholas said once he and Gypsy arrived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, his mother picked him and Gypsy up from the bus station and drove them to Big Bend, Wisconsin. Nicholas said this was the first time his mother had ever met Gypsy. After listening to Nicholas tell his initial story about meeting Gypsy, traveling to Springfield, Gypsy being kicked out of her home, their travels back to Wisconsin, I explained to him that I knew he had not told the whole truth about the events surrounding his visit to Springfield, Missouri. I explained to Nicholas that Gypsy had told a different story than he had, and I encouraged Nicholas to be honest. Nicholas said, well, the truth is I worship her, so there's no way I wouldn't do the honorable thing for her. I asked Nicholas if Gypsy knew he was going to kill her mother. Nicholas responded, honestly, she asked me to, because she felt it was her only way to be with me. Nicholas went on to explain that Gypsy had asked him more than once to kill Dee Dee. Nicholas said they discussed him killing Dee Dee on Facebook and during text messages. Nicholas said, the truth is, okay, I'll admit it. I did actually stab her mom. I will admit it. And the only reason I did it was I did it for me and her. That's the real reason I did it. I would never have did it if it was not for me and her. Nicholas said, I truly do worship her to the point there is nothing I would not do for her. Nicholas said if Gypsy had not asked him to kill Dee Dee, he never would have killed her. Nicholas said he does not know Gypsy's mom's real name. He only knew she was called Dee. Nicholas said Gypsy loves her mother. Nicholas said Gypsy felt guilty about the whole situation, and I had to make sure she was safe, meaning like I had to make sure she felt like she could be comforted by me. Nicholas said Gypsy wanted to kill her mother herself, but she could not kill her mother herself because she was too skittish. Nicholas said Gypsy could not do it herself because she could not live with herself. Nicholas said, honestly, to this day, I still feel guilty about it. I do, because I learned so much about her mom after she told me more and more about it. After actually being able to live with her for a little while, I actually realized how good of a mom she was. Nicholas clarified that Gypsy was telling him about Dee and all of her accomplishments. It was those things that made him feel guilty for what he had done to Dee. That is so wild, y'all. It's weird because Gypsy has a tendency to say good things about her mom when she's talking privately. And we saw that in the emails too, which is really confusing. The worst thing she ever mentioned in her emails could be considered abuse, as she talked about her mom smacking her. Now, I'm not one for smacking children myself or even grown adult children. At the same time, it would depend on the repetition and severity before I could consider it abuse, because people have different beliefs on corporal punishment and things like that. I'm not too into that myself, but at the same time, I don't think other parents who have different beliefs and do it within reason should necessarily be labeled as abusers. So I don't know, that might be too touchy of a subject, but that's just my feelings there. What do y'all think, friends? Okay, I asked Nicholas if the trip to Springfield on June 10th, 2015 was for the purpose of killing Dee. Nicholas stated it was because I wanted to be with her and I asked Nicholas if Gypsy knew he was coming to kill Dee. Nicholas stated yes. I asked Nicholas why they had decided to stab Dee instead of poisoning her, shooting her, or beating her with a bat. Nicholas explained neither he nor Gypsy would have known how to poison Dee. Nicholas said Gypsy looked up multiple times of how to do it because she wanted to find the quickest way. Nicholas said Gypsy wanted Dee to be in the least pain and for her death to be quick. Nicholas said the reason we chose the knife is because I guess she thought that it would be quicker if she bled out quickly. More holes, the faster they go away and the faster they are at peace. Nicholas confirmed this is what he thought Gypsy was thinking when she mentioned the stabbing. He clarified Gypsy never said those exact words to him. I don't know. I'll have to look back at the communications that we have documented, but I don't remember seeing Gypsy talk about it in any kind of sympathetic way towards Dee Dee. Do y'all? I think because he loved her, because he was infatuated with her, that whatever she said, Nick just kind of assigned the best possible motive he could think of in his mind without Gypsy actually saying it. What do y'all think? Am I right or am I reaching there? Nicholas also clarified on the day that he killed Dee, he arrived at Dee's home via a yellow taxi cab. Nicholas said the taxi picked him up from his hotel room and dropped him off at Dee and Gypsy's home located at 2103 West Volunteer Way, Springfield, Missouri. Nicholas said when he arrived at Dee and Gypsy's home, Gypsy was the one who led him inside the home. I asked Nicholas where he had got the knife to stab Dee. Nicholas said Gypsy had bought the knife for him and she had it waiting for him when he arrived in Springfield, Missouri. Nicholas explained Gypsy had bought the knife online. Nicholas later changed his story and stated Gypsy had found a way to purchase the knife from a Walmart. Nicholas described the knife as having a red and black handle. Nicholas described the handle of the knife as being squishy. He said one side of the knife is smooth and the other jagged. Nicholas said he could hold the knife with one hand. Nicholas said in regards to the knife he had used to stab Dee, he and Gypsy mailed the knife from Springfield, Missouri to his address in Big Bend, Wisconsin. Nicholas said a taxi had taken him and Gypsy to a post office to mail the package. He said they asked the taxi driver to take them to the closest post office from their hotel room. Nicholas said the knife did arrive at his home in Big Bend, Wisconsin. Nicholas said his stepdad was the one who got the package with the knife from the mailbox. He said his stepdad gave the package to Gypsy and Gypsy brought it to him. Nicholas said his stepdad had no idea it was a knife in the package. He said the knife was currently hidden in the deep right corner of his closet within his bedroom. Nicholas said the knife was still in the package. It had been mailed in and the package was unopened. Nicholas explained Gypsy had that all set up. Nicholas explained Gypsy had the material to mail the knife and had written the address on the envelope the knife was mailed in. He said the knife was packaged in bubble wrap in a brown envelope. He said she put it in two of them. Okay, two envelopes. Nicholas said it was both of their idea to mail the knife because they planned to get rid of the knife permanently. Nicholas said when he was stabbing Dee, Dee was lying on her stomach in bed within her bedroom. I cannot for the life of me understand why they didn't get rid of the knife. Although I suspect Gypsy had decided not to get rid of the knife because she had decided she thought she could get by with it, which she kind of did, that baby police sentence, and that she was just going to set up Nick. I think that's probably why she stashed it in the closet after mailing it there instead of, dropping it in Springfield Lake or something. And I don't know that with his capacity that Nick would have thought, hey, we need to get rid of the knife when he was overjoyed at having Gypsy there in his house, in his bedroom for the first time, for real. What do y'all think? Nicholas said Dee was wearing a nightgown, no panties, barely covered with blankets. I asked Nicholas where the first place was that he stabbed Dee. Nicholas said he stabbed her in a random spot in her back. I asked him how many times he stabbed Dee, and he responded 4, while holding up 4 fingers on his left hand. Nicholas said the fourth one, I felt it go into, I think it might have gone into her lungs because it was harder to get out. Nicholas explained he had to yank the knife out using one hand. Nicholas explained as far as stabbing, he only stabbed Dee 4 times, but he stated he did cut her. Nicholas explained he cut Dee on the back of her neck. Nicholas said he did see blood on Dee's neck after he cut her. So I know a lot of people have speculated that that particular wound might have been made by Gypsy. If it was, we know that at least Nick saw it, went in there and saw it because he took credit. I asked Nicholas if Dee said anything when she was being stabbed. Nicholas said first she said help, then she didn't recognize who I was. She said, who are you? Then she called out for Gypsy, but Gypsy didn't do anything. Nicholas said Dee yelled for Gypsy 3 times. Nicholas explained Dee pretty much yelped it and then used his own voice to mimic what he heard Dee yelling. I asked Nicholas what he did when Dee was yelling and he responded, it didn't stop me from keeping on going. I asked Nicholas if he could have stabbed Dee more than 4 times. Nicholas first stated that he wasn't aware of stabbing Dee more than 4 times, but later stated that it was possible. Nick said he counted the ones that went in deep, but did not count the other ones. Nicholas said he cannot remember everywhere he stabbed Dee because he thought it's a blockage because of the guilt. Nicholas denied Gypsy ever stabbed Dee. He explained she couldn't do it. That's the reason she asked me to. Well, I personally don't believe that. It's me breaking in here. I believe she asked him to so that he could possibly take the full fall. What do y'all think? I asked Nicholas where Gypsy was when he was stabbing Dee. Nicholas said Gypsy was hiding in the bathroom. Nicholas explained Gypsy was hiding because she did not know if Dee would actually end up killing him. Nicholas went on to explain that she didn't believe I could actually do it. That's what I think it was. She didn't think I was capable of it. I asked Nicholas whose decision was it that Gypsy would hide in the bathroom while he was stabbing Dee. Nicholas said it was Gypsy's decision to hide in the bathroom. Nicholas said Gypsy went in the bathroom and locked the bathroom door. Nicholas said he did not ever allow Gypsy to see Dee after he had killed her because he did not want Gypsy to be traumatized. I don't believe that, y'all. What do y'all think? I mean, I think still Gypsy, we have, county cellmate claiming that Gypsy told them that she went in there to clean up the blood. And when she talks about cleaning up the blood, it just seems logical that one of the main places would have been the bedroom. And then again, we've got those dryer sheets and the powder that I'm pretty sure she's admitted she put there. Like I said before, there's just no way that Dee Dee wouldn't have noticed that if it was done before her death, in my opinion. What do y'all think, friends? Nicholas said that while he had spoke to Gypsy about raping Dee, he did not grape her and did not touch her body, dead or alive, in any sexual manner. Nicholas thought it was disturbing for people to have sex with dead people. I wish he would have went into more detail about why he thought about it, because if he finds that disturbing, why would he have suggested it? So when he says he spoke to her about it, that doesn't confirm to me who brought it up. And then Nicholas says he thinks it's disturbing. So I don't know. What do y'all think, friends? He was also upset, from the other video that I did about the clown stuff. Nicholas was upset when Gypsy said he was like Charles Manson at one point. He was like, I am not. He was like, I would never, ever want to be a serial killer. Nobody should. Nicholas said after he was done stabbing Dee, he went to the bathroom door where Gypsy was hiding. He said they had set up a code prior to Gypsy locking herself in the bathroom so Gypsy would know it was him and not Dee at the bathroom door. Nicholas went on to explain the code he and Gypsy had come up with. He was to knock 3 times and scratch 2 times on the bathroom door, which would signal to Gypsy that it was him outside the bathroom door. Nicholas said they had discussed several ideas, but the 3 knocks and 2 scratches was the one they stuck with. I got the feeling too from there, whenever in the last video I did on this case file where I ended it with reading their texts from the 9th and the 10th, I got the impression too that Gypsy was afraid that Nick wouldn't be able to do it, wouldn't be able to finish it. And she was telling him, if it goes wrong, just run out the back door and that kind of thing. So she probably wanted to be in the bathroom to have some kind of plausible deniability should anyone walk in on it, or Nick just, freak out in the middle of it, something like that. I know some people have the theory that Dee Dee was partially or completely gone before Nick got there. So if that was the case, then you have the possibility that Gypsy might have been worried about, if that was the case, Gypsy might have been worried about the possibility of Nick coming in, seeing her flipping out, running out, going to the police, calling 911, something like that, anything. And by being in the bathroom, maybe she was planning to be like, it was a home invasion. I've never myself thought that home invasion was her ultimate plan, but I could see it as the possibility for throwing Nick under the bus if he freaked out in the middle of it or before or anything like that. Nicholas explained Gypsy did not open the door right away after he had killed Dee and given the signal for her to open the door. Instead, she wanted to shave her private part and legs. Nicholas explained usually Dee would not let Gypsy shave her legs. I asked Nicholas if he made Gypsy shave her legs and vagina. Nicholas said, I think it was a combination of both of us. I mean, I wanted her to. I'll be honest, I did want her to, but I think she wanted to do it also because she wanted to make sure she pleased me, made me happy. Nicholas said after Gypsy shaved her private parts and her legs, they started cleaning up around the house. Nicholas said Gypsy was completely naked while she cleaned up the blood. Nicholas explained they were cleaning up anything that had memories of her. So another thing I want to point out here, I can't remember if it was on TikTok, on a live stream, or one of her interviews or her show, but there was one point where when talking about her childhood, I believe it was when she was talking about her grandpa and accusing him of abuse. Whoever she was speaking to said something, I can't believe, anyone would do that to a child or something like that. And Gypsy said something like that. Well, was it abusive when my mom would shave my vagina? And there was, shock and horror, of course. But Nick says she had to shave after Dee Dee was murdered because Dee Dee wouldn't allow her to shave her legs or anything. And this is after the point where the interrogator has convinced him that in order to do the honorable thing by Gypsy, he has to tell the complete truth. Well, we don't necessarily think he is telling the complete truth. We think that he protects Gypsy still, but I do think he is trying to be mainly truthful to details. To me, I think that puts a lot of doubt on one of Gypsy's accusations at Dee Dee. She took some pictures away. She actually threw them in the trash. She tried to get rid of things that would give you guys the idea that she really lived there. Nicholas said they did clean up the blood, stating, "I believe it must have been mine because I actually stabbed myself in the process." Nicholas showed me his right index finger, which had a small bandage on it. Nicholas also pointed out the area on his left forearm, which was bandaged. Nicholas said it had been injured in the killing of Dee Dee. However, the injury had been injured again when he was taken into custody by Waukesha County law enforcement. Now, the throwing away of the pictures in the trash, we know she didn't throw them all away because we can see pictures of her in some of the crime scene photos. So what exactly was she doing there? We know also that Gypsy never told Nick everything. She lied to Nick and manipulated him just like everybody else. So even if Nick's being completely truthful, I don't believe that he had the whole story. I kind of wonder if there was something in the pictures that she threw away that she felt was telling something about her motive. I don't know, something like that, because there was no way that Springfield, Missouri was not going to know that Gypsy Rose Blanchard lived there. And even though she's not the brightest and does some dumb things, that just seems like a stretch to believe that she would actually think that was possible. That's why I don't buy the, home invasion and she was never there and thought people would just forget about her theory. There was still pictures in there. No one in Springfield was going to forget a child or childish looking teenager to what they knew that they thought was about to die in a wheelchair. So in my opinion, there was some reason why she threw specific pictures away. And I really, really wish this interrogator would have followed up more on that, asked him about the pictures, what she said about why she was throwing them away and stuff. Because, like I said before, Nick will probably never be ready to talk about that again. What do y'all think, friends? That part of it has to be speculation because we just don't know the facts of why she did that. We just know that Nick said she did. Nicholas continued talking about the cleanup that occurred at Dee's home. Nicholas said for a while he and Gypsy cleaned together, but then because Gypsy wanted to get the cleanup down faster, she started cleaning by herself. Nicholas said Gypsy used a cleaner odor remover. He said the bottle Gypsy used to clean up the blood was reddish in color. Nicholas said there was a liquid in the reddish bottle, and Gypsy poured the liquid on the blood. Nicholas said Gypsy then used a paper towel and or wipes to clean the blood. Having been told the crime scene contained spray bottles with a blue color liquid in them, I asked Nicholas about the spray bottle that had been located at Dee's residence. Nicholas could not recall seeing the spray bottles. I don't know what that was. I mean, it sounds like Windex or something. So when Nick came in, we know it was around 3 a.m. Lights would have been off, I assume, because they wouldn't have wanted to attract attention to the fact that someone was coming in at 3 a.m. So lights would have been off. So if there was already blood in the hallway and stuff, he wouldn't have known. Nicholas said after Gypsy cleaned up the blood, she wanted to have sex with him. Nicholas explained he and Gypsy had VA and oral sex in Gypsy's bedroom within her bedroom. Nicholas described Gypsy's bed as being full of stuffed animals. He said they moved the stuffed animals off the bed, and after they had sex, they put the stuffed animals back on the bed. Nick said the sex between Gypsy and he was consensual. Nick explained, obviously I was the one in charge, but she went along with it willingly. I would ask Nicholas if Dee was making any noise or if she was dead when he and Gypsy were having sex. Nicholas responded she was probably long gone by then. Nicholas said he did not ejaculate during his sex with Gypsy nor at any time while inside the Blanchard home. Nicholas said he felt he may have had too much stamina or endurance or something like that because it takes a lot to get me even close. Nicholas said that the sex with Gypsy concluded when she had an orgasm and she performed oral sex on him. Nicholas said that after having sex, they realized there was a lot of packing and stuff that needed to get done. He said they began packing Gypsy's clothing, movies, and whatever she thought we would need pretty much. Nicholas said some of the movies they packed were Game of Thrones and True Blood. Nicholas said the stuff they gathered during packing was placed in Gypsy's pink suitcase and a black backpack. Nicholas described it as being black with writing on it. Nicholas said after they packed everything they wished to take from the home, Gypsy began cleaning things in an attempt to get rid of all of his fingerprints. Nicholas explained Gypsy used a disinfectant wipe and patted down all areas that he may have touched. Nicholas said Gypsy did this because she did not want him to get caught. Nicholas said he did not help Gypsy clean because they did not want to take a chance of him getting fingerprints anywhere else in the home. I asked Nicholas if the Blanchard home was neat and orderly. He said, no, it's not neat at all. This was my first time ever in their house. Can't believe how much a pigsty it was. Nicholas went on to explain that one room in the house had so much stuff in it that it was hard to even get in the room. Nicholas said in Dee's bedroom there was stuff stacked on the floor along the edge of the bed. Having been advised a purple Barney doll had been located in the bed next to Dee, I asked Nicholas if he recalled ever seeing a purple Barney doll. Nick initially said that he did and that it was in Gypsy's room. However, after giving it some thought, he could not recall where he had seen it in the home, and then even later stated that he had not seen the doll. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we all believe that Gypsy took that Barney doll out of her room and put it next to Dee Dee. Nicholas said after packing and cleaning, he used his cell phone to call a taxi. Nicholas said a yellow and colored taxi came to the Blanchard home to pick him and Gypsy up. Nicholas could not recall the exact date the taxi came, but explained the sun was coming up when the taxi picked them up. Nicholas said the taxi took him and Gypsy back to his hotel, which, as he stated earlier in the interview, was the Days Inn in Springfield, Missouri. Nicholas said his room number was 227. Nicholas said after arriving at the hotel, they relaxed and cuddled on the bed. Nick said they talked about their future and about having a family together. Nick said, we thought we really had a chance to do it. We were really happy about that. Nicholas stated the cuddling led to him and Gypsy again having sex. Nick stated he did not ejaculate during his sexual contact and that he had trouble the entire time he was in Springfield. I asked Nicholas if he had got blood on the clothing he was wearing at the time he killed Dee. He said that he had and that he did not clean his clothing. Nick said he was wearing a black spin jacket, black shirt, black pants, and white tennis shoes. The black shirt had crazy clowns on it. Nick said that the clothing and shoes he wore when he killed Dee were at his home in Big Bend, Wisconsin, within his bedroom. Nicholas said that his bedroom is located in the upstairs portion of his home, adding the walls of the room is purple. Nicholas said the clothing was still contained inside the red and black Marlboro duffel bag, and the clothing had not been washed. You know, that is so weird to me. You would think that Gypsy would have had the sense to want to at least wash her own shirt that had the blood drops on it, or was she just truly that lazy? What do y'all think, friends? I can kind of see her not suggesting washing Nick's because we feel pretty sure that she wanted to implicate him only. But you'd think she would have at least washed her own, but maybe she's so lazy that she just didn't notice that there was blood spatter on her shirt. Oh, and a few of you asked in the comments whether or not they tested that on her shirt. I'm not aware of whether they did or not. My assumption is that Stan Hancock wouldn't have asserted it in the case report so confidently had they not, but I guess, maybe we'll find out eventually for sure. Nicholas said when he and Gypsy had sex in her bedroom, it was not the first time he and Gypsy had sex. Nicholas explained that whenever he visited Springfield, Missouri in March of 2015, he and Gypsy had sex in the bathroom within a movie theater. Nicholas said Gypsy was wearing a blue Cinderella dress and a blonde wig when he had sex with her in the bathroom of the theater. Nicholas said that he took Gypsy's virginity when he had sex with her in the men's bathroom. Nicholas explained March 2015 was also the first time he ever met Dee. Nicholas said Dee was very nice to him. However, the night got ruined in some way. Nicholas said after he and Gypsy had sex in the bathroom, they watched the movie and he said his goodbyes to Gypsy. When he says the night got ruined in some way, we know what Gypsy's story about that is. That, Dee Dee was so mad and watching over and getting mad because Gypsy was giving more attention to Nick than her. To me, it feels like if that could possibly be the case, how on earth would they have been able to go to the bathroom together? Or even at the same time? It feels like if any of what she's describing there about Dee Dee is true, that there's just no way Dee Dee would have allowed that to happen. What do y'all think, friends? Nicholas said Gypsy was in a wheelchair when he met with her in March 2015. Nicholas said Gypsy only had to be in the wheelchair at home. He said only he and 5 other people knew that Gypsy could walk. Nicholas explained further, stating Dee wanted everyone to think Gypsy was 16 and disabled. He said, yeah, she felt kind of trapped on the wheelchair when I was actually trying to encourage her to be able to walk more and more. Nicholas described the wheelchair as being motorized. Nicholas said Gypsy has no problem walking and can walk up and down stairs all without any assistance. So see, to me, we saw that one text where Gypsy texted Nick and she said, I've got pain pills for my back pain and I've exercised my legs so I'll be ready to walk. Feels weird having all my weight on my feet, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe any of that's true because, like I said before, the doctors in Springfield who tested her said there was no atrophy of muscles in her legs, like there should have been, were she actually in the wheelchair as much as her and Dee Dee said she was. So, Gypsy saying that to Nick kind of reminds me of Gypsy saying to Ryan in the prison emails, "Oh, my scoliosis hurts so bad, I don't think I'll be able to work." She was gearing up to Nick that she wasn't going to be able to walk very good. But when she had no choice, she wasn't able to hide it. You know, she had to run up and down the stairs at Nick's house because they had stairs and she didn't have a wheelchair there. What do y'all think, friends? Also, who are the five other people? So we got Nick, we got Dan. Maybe he meant Dee Dee as one. That leaves two more. What's y'all's guesses? Nick explained when he first came to Springfield, Missouri in March 2015, and then the second time in June 2015, Gypsy paid for his travels to and from Springfield, Missouri. Nicholas said Gypsy sent him cash in the mail for both trips. Nicholas said each time Gypsy sent him $400. Nicholas said in reference to killing Dee, he had a weird feeling that he was going to get caught. Nicholas said he was not sure when it was going to happen, but he had a weird feeling in his stomach that he would. Nicholas said he and Gypsy have cried multiple times over what happened. Nicholas said, "I told her this will haunt me the rest of my life because that's the truth. It will." It's sad how many times in his messages to her that he said, "Can't we just run away?" While clarifying questions, Nick said when he arrived at Gypsy's home on the night he stabbed Dee, Gypsy met him at the front door. Nicholas said Gypsy was wearing a long, dark brunette wig. He said she already had the knife and a pair of blue-green gloves for him to put on. Nicholas said Gypsy had not been wearing gloves at the time she was handling the knife. Huh, that's weird. Nicholas said he and Gypsy had gone to Waffle House restaurant to eat when they were in Springfield, Missouri. He said the Waffle House was located right next to Days Inn Hotel he and Gypsy had been staying at. Nicholas said while he cannot recall the exact day, he did recall it was around 8 a.m. Nicholas said he was able to remember this time frame because this was the time he was reminded that Gypsy is lactose intolerant. Nick said he ate a steak and cheese omelet with raisin toast and hash browns. So yeah, let's go over again. Little Miss, I'm perfectly healthy and my mom made everything up is lactose intolerant. Can you imagine how hard that was to figure out in the early 90s when Dee Dee had Gypsy being lactose intolerant? And it must be pretty bad because don't kids sometimes grow out of that, or does that stay all your life? I'm clearly not educated on this. Apologies, y'all. I guess I could just Google it, but I'm sure y'all will let me know in the comments. So anyway, Gypsy is lactose intolerant. She does have microcephaly. She does have scoliosis. She needed all of the eye surgeries because of her lazy eye or the symptoms of the chromosome deletion or something. And then the big one, the chromosome deletion, 1q21.1. That's 5 real diagnoses that put all together and completely unknown. Wow. Well, this is getting super long, friends, and it looks like we still got a third of it to go. So I'm going to cut off here and edit. We'll have a little palette cleanser, and then maybe tomorrow or the next day, I will continue on the rest. Have a good day, friends.